We all got this incredible news of a US strategic reserve, including XRP, ADA, and Solana. I wanted to better understand if, in fact, this money was invested into these ecosystems, how much would be put into each asset, as well as how much impact that would have on each token's price, and how many tokens would be taken out of circulating supply. This is all information I haven't seen anybody talk about yet, so I wanted to put the video together to go into all of these little details because they could have a huge impact on the overall weight of how much it is per XRP, how much is circulating. And man, this is going to be a really fun video. If you get anything out of this video, please hit like and please share it with somebody that you also think will get value. So we've all seen this, right? The tweet heard around the world, a US crypto reserve will elevate this critical industry after years of corrupt attacks by the Biden administration, which is why my executive order on digital assets directed the Presidential Working Group to move forward on crypto strategic reserve that includes XRP, Solana, and ADA. Do you notice that XLM was not included in this? I did put a tweet together, and I'm wondering if, in fact, this is why Stellar decided to attack Ripple last month. If you guys remember that, I really didn't like that. But maybe this is the current reason. Also, there was a lot of confusion about Ethereum and Bitcoin. Eleanor Taran, of course, comes in with the incredible work she does. An amazing job. If you're not following her, please do. She does so much good research, and she really gets us. So we know what's happening here. She said the reserve will also include Bitcoin and Ethereum. So here's the question. How much money is actually going to be spent on all this, and what impact is that going to have on our bottom line, which is our wallet? So I'm going to get into all of those details in just a second here. But first, I did want to point out there are probably going to be some other assets that are added to the strategic reserve over time. At least you might see like Cardano, I'd imagine AVAC maybe, and possibly Litecoin. There could be other assets added, don't get me wrong. But right now we know what we're dealing with. So let's get into the information. So we do understand that before this went from a Bitcoin strategic reserve to a, multiple crypto asset reserves, we knew that the government wanted to own 1 million Bitcoin. So here it is, because we knew that the goal was 1 million Bitcoin. What we can do here is take 1 million, right? And we can minus out 27,189. So that means that the US would buy 79.2181 Bitcoin, because they wanted to have a total number of 1 million Bitcoin. Now that we understand that they're not going to put all of this money into Bitcoin, we can in fact figure out how much money they were going to put in the crypto market. So if the US wanted to get to that level of 1 million Bitcoin, they would need to buy 79.2 million Bitcoin. Right today, we don't know what Bitcoin's going to be priced at a year from now or 2 years from now. So I'm just going to use today's prices. Okay, so if they wanted to do it today, they would need to cough up around 70 billion. So now that we know that they're going to invest in 5 assets, I put the numbers here that they would invest. 13,886,945,000 and some change into each asset. Now, of course, they could come out and say, we want to put, 30% into Bitcoin and, this and this and this. But we don't have those details, so I am just using a fair and even split down the middle here. So I wanted to say if the US invested, basically 13 billion and some change into XRP today, what would that bring XRP's price to? And so of course we got some information here to calculate the potential price impact of the $13 billion investment on XRP's price. We need to consider the current market conditions and make some assumptions. Current XRP price at the time. I'm recording this is $287. Current market cap for XRP is 161 billion. And some change, XRP's circulating supply says it's 56 billion. And some change, if we assume this large investment would be made to increase the market cap. The new market cap would be, the 161 plus the 13, which would bring us to 175 billion. Bringing the token price just to about $32. This calculation suggests that if the US invested roughly 14 billion into XRP today, it could potentially bring XRP's price to about $32, so nothing too crazy. But what I want you to understand is this. the way that we can increase the price of XRP is by lowering the circulating supply. And there's only a few ways that we can do that. One is through staking and one is through long-term holding. So if the United States is buying crypto to sell 5 or 10 years down the line, this is going to go into cold storage and will be taken out of the circulating supply. I wanted to better understand like how much XRP they would actually to be buying. You talking about 4.8 billion XRP tokens. That is almost 5% of the entire supply. If we use these numbers that the US government said that they were interested in investing XYZ into the crypto market, it says therefore an investment of, about 14 billion would allow the purchase of approximately 4.84 billion XRP. So I wanted to better understand where this XRP could come from, right? We do have the list here, and it's so difficult to find out how much XRP is on which exchange and this and that. So what I did was I took the top 100 wallets. You can see there's some of it like Upbit, Chris Larson, Binance Kraken, all kinds of different stuff in here. Ripple? Okay. And so I had, them sort this. I had Perplexity sort all of the wallets and how much XRP is in which wallet. Just to give you an example here, the top 10 XRP holders, these are all, I believe, Ripple addresses. You also have Uphold, which has about 1.8 billion XRP BM, has 1.5 billion XRP Binance, has multiple addresses totaling about 2% of the whole. Supply here are those addresses. Upbit actually has 4.44% of the supply. Bitbank has 0.59% coin. Che has 0.57% euro, has basically a 0.5%. Chris Larson has 2%. Kraken has 0.56%. SBI has 32%. And then, of course, here is some information on the top 10 holders, top 20, top 50, and top 100. Okay, the interesting part here is there isn't a ton of XRP left on these exchanges. I would be shocked if the number is over 20 billion XRP. The rest is in, Ripple's wallets and escrow or personal wallets of people at Ripple, or it's in yours and my wallets, right? The interesting part about all of this is, will the US government go directly to Ripple to ask for a discount on XRP and buy it directly from Ripple, or will they be forced to buy it off the open market? Now, I don't have to tell you, if they bought it off the open market, this would greatly be good for all of us. If they bought it through Ripple, we wouldn't see an impact on the price right away because, Ripple would be selling it to the government and they could decide how much they would want to sell to the government. That's the only reason I think the US would try to buy it from Ripple, because they could probably get it at a steep discount. So I did want to look at a little bit more information here about, the top 100 wallets. We did talk a little bit about this, and so I will leave a link down to all of these links in the description. If you want to do some due diligence yourself and dig through this, please do. So I highly suggest that. It would be really cool, but you can see that buying almost 5 billion XRP, guys, would dramatically increase the price. Now, the reason I think this is super important too is this is one government, okay? There are 195 countries around the world, and some of these countries are way ahead of the United States in working with Ripple and XRP, right? You have Singapore, you have the UK, you have PAO, you have all of these other countries that Ripple has been working with. Hong Kong, right? There are so many countries. So what are those countries going to do? Are they going to want to buy and hold XRP too? And that will be a long-term holding, which will take it out of the circulating supply, right? Then you throw on banks. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, UBS, Santander. There's hundreds of banks and financial institutions who will also rely on XRP and want to hold like SBI does long term. Is it so insane to think that the circulating supply of XRP, if these central banks and banks got into this, could be reduced to 10% or 5% or lower? I don't think it's that crazy. I think there could be a run on XRP. And this is how we get to a 5,000, 10,000, right? You bring on trillions of dollars in value. You process trillions of dollars in value in payments every day. And you reduce the circulating supply to 5 or 1% or whatever it's going to be. This is going to open up the gateway for a huge XRP price. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is all of us ready. Let's go. All right, so if you wanted to get some information on ADA and on Solana, I have that information for you too. Guys, if you don't care about this, you're just going to leave. Remember, hit like and remember to share this with somebody. I think this is really fun and cool information, but here's the data on ADA. So we're using the exact same number of 13, B886 million, and some change to calculate the impact this amount in investment would have on ADA's price. Consider the current cap, and so we're adding the current market cap of ADA plus the 13 billion. This would bring us to 53.6 billion, and this would bring ADA's price to $11.50. This would also take away circulating supply out of the ADA ecosystem. And then how much ADA would the US government own if they invested 13.8 billion? They would actually own about 9.2 billion Cardano ADA, right? And the circulating supply is only 35 billion. So this does make one wonder, is the US government going to own 25% of all circulating? ADA, the total supply, is only 44 billion, right? Is the US going to own 20%, 25% of all ADA in existence? I don't know. I mean, this could very well happen, right? So I thought, this was a really interesting number. And if you wanted to take a look at the Solana numbers here, it is. So it determines how much it would change by spending 13.8 billion. The current price of Solana at the time of this video was 172. The circulating supply is 488,730,129. The market cap is 84 billion. If we take 84.6 billion and add on the 13.8 billion, we're basically at 98 billion. And this would bring the total price per Solana to $21. But listen to this, the US would be buying 96.538.0090 Solana, and so the current circulating supply of Solana is actually 592,595,000. So this would actually give the United States like 1/16 of the total supply of Solana. But remember, the max supply of Solana is infinite. They can print it and create it out of thin air. I don't, have all the details about how much Solana is going to be created over the next 5 to 10 years, but you can imagine Ethereum and Solana both have infinite supplies. This is why so many people believe XRP is going to be the world's reserve currency. It's at a set supply. You can't just print it out of thin air. It kind of reminds you of something else we create out of thin air, right? Money. So it's very, very interesting. I'm dying to know what you guys think about. This is the US gonna own 4.8 billion XRP. Are they going to be one of the largest holders in the world for XRP? Are they going to invest more than 13.8 billion in XRP or less, right? Is it going to be mainly Bitcoin and Ethereum, and then Solana, XRP, and ADA make up maybe like 4 or 5% of the total investment? I'd love to better understand what you think.